Hello everyone, welcome back to the Dealer Chat podcast. Today with Dave of the Lovely Car Company, James of Chops Garage, and myself, Joe Betty of Barrow Motors. And our special guest for this episode is Nick Kumchev of lovelycars.com, which could get confusing as we've got the Lovely Car Company and Lovely Cars. But thank you very much for coming on, Nick. I have heard you a lot via Dave's podcast and probably learnt quite a lot, but for those of us or those that don't know you or your business, can you give us a quick sort of 30-second rundown of who you are and what it is you do and what the business looks like?
I've started about 20 years ago and my business is still very small, but I like it just the way that it is. We have about 20 cars in stock. We're based in Chalfont St Giles in Buckinghamshire, just outside of London, and our customers come literally from everywhere in the country. And typical car of ours is about a 5-year-old BMW 320, 520 diesel worth about, 12 to 15,000 pounds. We don't go anywhere near the top end of the market. I don't like super expensive cars, and I don't like Land Rover product, which I know you will not appreciate, but that's where we are, yeah.
No, that's fair enough.
How low do you go, Nick?
Sorry?
How low do you go? What's your lowest price point?
I'd sell a £500 car if I can find one cheap enough for me to be able to sell it. I'd go very low if there is money in it.
Yeah, I remember you saying on one of Dave's podcasts before, it's kind of like it really clicked for me, and you were saying that you don't mind selling, say, for example, obviously I've got your website up at the minute just to kind of show everyone, that you don't mind selling like leggier German stuff or whatever, but it's got to come in part exchange so you can kind of not nick it, but get it at the right price. You wouldn't want to buy it at auction. At that time, that was exactly what I was doing, and it probably clicked a little bit for me, trying to set yourself up in advance to buy the nice cars so that you then get those sorts of cars in part exchange, and then it makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. To me, part exchanging is a great opportunity to get cheaper stock, and not necessarily cheaper, but to get a bit of exclusivity from a customer, because you don't have anyone else competing. You're just there, and you've got time to do it, inspect it, put the diagnostics on, test drive it. Obviously, when a customer comes to do a deal with us, we don't spend a heck of a lot of time inspecting their car. I'm not the RAC or the AA, so I'm not going to put it up on a ramp and spend a couple of hours. But it's nice to have a few minutes, and it's nice to be able to plug in the diagnostic machine, and it's nice to know what you're buying, which we don't always have the luxury these days. These days, we literally close our eyes and press a button, and then it arrives in a couple of days, and then you open your eyes and see what you've bought. And more often than not, we've done well, but sometimes there are, unpleasant surprises.
Yeah, I have one of those at the moment, a BMW with
a
knocky engine. But it's interesting with part exchanges, because another thing I heard you say on the other podcast was about, it gets too confusing for me, which is why I'm glad I don't do the sales so much anymore, but a lot of yours are done at a distance, or they come into you at a distance, so therefore you kind of like allow, and when it gets finance involved as well, it gets so complicated with that part exchange as the deposit and all that sort of stuff. You have a system where you say, I'll give you like the maximum of this and whatever, and you deduct it off the deposit. Is that right? You will explain it better than I do.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, with a long distance customer, you have to agree the part exchange price in advance, but at the same time, it's extremely difficult before you actually see what the car looks like. So we would typically agree a range of valuation, for example, between £3,500 and £4,500, depending on what condition the car comes. And then if we have to adjust the part exchange valuation, we'll just increase or reduce the customer's deposit amount. Because on a finance deal, once they're approved for a certain amount of finance, you don't really want to go back to the lender to try and amend those figures. And the easiest thing to change the part exchange valuation is to increase or decrease the deposit amount.
Yeah. And do you find that's normally okay? Because I feel like a lot of our customers, if we were like, all of a sudden you've got to come up with an extra £500 in cash, they wouldn't necessarily have it.
So you need to set these things up in advance with the customer. You cannot promise them a firm figure, because they can never absolutely describe their car to you 100%. And if they do describe it, and then if you find something wrong, what do? You can't. The whole deal then is dead in the water. So I like to spend time in advance preparing every deal and explaining to my customer, I absolutely cannot give you 100% firm part exchange price over the phone without you being here. And at the same time, if they will travel 250 miles to get to us, which many of our customers do, you need to you need to come up with some figures that we're all happy with well in advance, and then you need to have a bit of flexibility. So, for example, if the car comes and it's slightly worse than I was expecting, sometimes I'll just, take the hit and appreciate the fact the customer's just driven 250 miles to me and they're about to drive another 250 miles back. So if this means getting a car £200 more expensive than I can get it elsewhere, then so be it. I mean, in the name of good customer service. But when you set up the deal in advance, you need to basically tell them, we'll give you between, say, £3,500 and £4,500, and it depends on this, and this, because it does depend on a lot of factors. You come with an older car with just the one key, that's still £100 I need to spend if I need to make a second key, which I often do, and you have to account for all these. You can't account for everything, never, but you have to account for the major bits, the major bodywork and things. Everyone knows what costs them the most. To me, bodywork was probably the biggest expense. As the cars got older, and as we've worked with that body shop for a number of years, the prices they're very reasonable now. But also on the older car, you can get away by not painting as much as something 2 or 3 years old. So now I look at stuff like service history and the major bits, the important bits, the headline items.
So Nick, sorry Joe, what's your sweet spot then for getting finance deals and for making the phone ring every month?
My close rep told me that their sweet spot, and I work with close, not exclusively, but almost exclusively because we're funded by them and they're the prime lender that we use. They said the sweet spot for finance is about an £8,000 lend, which basically means about a £10,000, £12,000 car with some deposit from the customer. So on average, they borrow about 8,000, and we try and be somewhere near that sweet spot. The problem I have is that we buy almost exclusively from BCA, and it's really difficult from British car auctions to get, say, a £6,000 car to be then able to sell for 8 profitably, because they've got their fees and you've got the hidden things that you didn't know you needed to fix. So we've kind of moved up. I ideally buy 11, 12, 13,000 pound car to sell for 15, 16, 17,000. I think that's my sweet spot. And also those price points give you a decent part exchange for about half the value of the retail car that we're selling. So if I'm selling a 16,000 pound car, it's perfectly reasonable to get an 8,000 one in part exchange.
When you moved up to those more expensive cars, what was the benefit then? You found they didn't had less hidden issues because they were that bit younger.
I've always said that it's easier to sell a £10,000 car than a £1,000 car, because the £1,000 car customer probably doesn't even have those £1,000. Some £1,000 car customers will borrow the £1,000 to buy the cheapest car they can find, and they can't spend a penny more. Whereas somebody buying a £10,000-15,000 car, it'll be a small percentage of their net worth, if you like. So for them, a small issue is not the end of the world. I find those customers easier to deal with. Obviously, you can't generalize and you can't put a blanket over how people spend their money. But to me, and obviously the major benefit is that when a car is sold on finance acceptance is the most important thing for that customer. Condition of the car is also important, but it becomes secondary. So if your car is not 1,000% perfect, you'll still make that sale on finance, whereas a cash buyer, if they want 1,000% perfect car, they will not buy yours if it's not 1,000%.
It's almost like make-believe money, isn't it? It's just a allow me to get it type money.
I think so, because
it's an interesting
a finance sale, that customer has not saved for that car. They've, I don't know how to put it, but they've not gone through great lengths to save. For them, it's not the end of the world if they spend it all, just because they're not spending money which is theirs. They're borrowing, and they're prepared to pay the monthly payment, which is fair enough. I mean, we all are for the housing market, so obviously not everyone is happy to do it on a used car being a depreciating asset. But we moved up. Our stock moved up in price a lot just during COVID. And during COVID, we all know that used cars were not a depreciating asset, they were an appreciating asset. It was a nightmare time, actually. I'm happy that it's over, that I can now buy a car that I can predict what it'll be worth in 2-3 months' time. Because the worst thing is I buy a car, sell it to you, take your money, go back to the trade, and that money is not enough for me to buy the next item of stock. So at least now you buy a car, you sell it, you take the retail money, you keep some profit, and you can comfortably say that you'll find something similar to offer again.
So you hop on BCA today. What's your search? Is it like Mercedes, BMW?
So what I will do,
8 years old?
I will tell. I don't like this disclosing commercially sensitive information, but I'm in good mood today. I went for a long run in the morning. It went well, so I'm in a good mood. I will very rarely manage a good buy on a BCA live auction simply because their prices tend to get way out of hand. So I will go first on BCA where they've got a small selection of bid now vehicles. And I will look at the bid now vehicles, which end tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And if one of them is of interest, I will track it. And then late in the evening, I'll make a single bid. And these bid now vehicles are typically a couple of £1,000 below cap clean, something from Black Horse Finance. There may be a small issue or two somewhere, which they've disclosed. And that's the first thing that I'll always do. The second thing is I'll go on buy now and I will start searching for automatic cars and I will filter brand. And I will always start with Mini. Just like Dave, I love Minis. And I will go through the available automatic Minis and I buy those on spec and condition alone. I could buy a 90,000 mileage one or a 19,000. Mileage isn't that important to me. But spec on a Mini is crucial, I think. An automatic gearbox. Because of where we are just outside of London and everyone here demands an automatic. And I know I said our customers travel from everywhere. But when you buy your stock, you have to have a local market in mind to pitch it. So I'd always go for the automatic gearboxes first. In fact, I can't tell you the last time I bought a manual car from an auction. I'd buy a manual Mini Cooper S, for example, with the higher horsepower engine. But a normal run-of-the-mill manual car like a BMW 3 Series, we wouldn't get one of them. In part exchange we will, but not as a retail purchase.
And is U-Laz a thing? Are you like having to buy cars that are
U-Laz is a big thing around us. So we'd always, when I choose a car for stock, I try and choose a U-Laz compliant one, which is easy these days. Even the 10-year-old diesels are compliant. From 2014, BMWs, Mercedes are compliant. So that's not a problem. But then we often get a non-U-Laz compliant diesel, and they still sell well. They just sell in a different area to a customer that will travel from further away because there is still value in those cars. I think they're a great buy. I was always a fan of the diesel technology, and I've traded cars in 20 years. And ever since I started 2005, I don't know whether you'd maybe remember, but the government was telling everyone to buy a diesel. And the auctioneers, when a car went in the auction hall, the auctioneer would be like, diesel, 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 diesel. That was a huge advantage at the time. And obviously these 20 years I've traded, this was the fuel to be in. Right now, sometimes I'm sitting here not knowing whether to go for petrol, not daring to go and buy electric. Literally some days I don't know what to buy for stock. But typically a petrol automatic is a sure enough thing for me. Yeah. A big diesel automatic also.
And how fast will you sell your cars then, Nick? Like what's
28 days on average. 28 days on average, my computer tells me, but I have about 10 days of prep. I cannot prepare a car fast enough. I need to do wheels. I need to do, if there is a couple of small issues, I'm trying to bring the prep times down. But the way I work from home, based in a small village outside of London. Nearest garage is maybe 25 minutes away, and the average car needs to go to 2-3 different places before it's ready for sale. So 28 days is my average, and I'm trying to bring it down, but I'm really struggling with that. It's the one thing that I think I should improve on. But at the same time, I don't want to cut corners.
Staff?
Nick?
Do you have any staff?
I work with my wife. We don't have any staff. We work with a number of other companies, but we don't have any employees. It's just me and her. She's the boss, and I'm the only employee.
And how many cars do you stock, Nick?
We've got about 18 at the minute.
See, that's great.
And do you valet yourself, or is that outsourced as well?
Well, we've got a company that we use, and they do an 80% job. But the last 20%, sometimes just before a customer comes, I look at a car, and I always see something that could be cleaner. So I'm not averse to getting a big box of stuff that I have, and the big box of chemicals, and then spending an hour of my precious time just getting the car from 80% valeted to 95% valeted, because I'm never happy. I'm never 100% happy with how one of our car looks. In fact, I look at new cars sometimes that somebody just bought 2 days ago, and I still see that something could have been done better. But
yeah, I'm a bit like
I think
I know it's regional, so it's going to differ. But what do you pay for like what you'd consider an 80% valet? Because
we pay £50, which I think is quite good for what we get. But even if we paid 100, we'd probably still only get an 85% valet. So I think it's worth me spending the last 20%, although I dislike that strongly. But then I like a very clean car. So.
But are they all outside?
Sorry?
Are they all outside?
Yes, yeah.
The cars. So you have to re-clean from just general dirt.
We've
presumably,
got
on
an
your
outside
forecourt
storage
area.
which is on a working farm, and in the summer it gets very dusty, in the winter it gets very muddy. So as soon as we move a car from there, we effectively have to re-clean. But it's the interior cleaning that takes us the most, and obviously the interior, once you close it up, that it stays generally very clean. So that's not a problem.
Sorry, just to clarify on that. So, how many cars do you keep at the place you sell, or do you bring them over one by one
We've got
as you sell
space
them?
here for about 9 vehicles. We've got about 5 here at the moment, and everything else is at our storage yard.
Oh, okay. So, do you work by appointment? Do you?
Very strictly by appointment. Yeah, if somebody walked here, chances are the car they wanted to see wouldn't even be here, and even if it was, it wouldn't be ready. So, and I've always worked by appointment. I'm sure that we've missed some sales over the years, but at the same time, when you work in this way, you've got so much more time and so much more flexibility to do everything that you need to do. And imagine the way I work, cars get constantly moved from one place to another, and I'm very rarely here. Even just being here for this podcast at 9 o'clock in the morning as we're filming it on a Thursday, we had to move a couple of jobs for later in the day just to be able to accommodate. But if a customer wants to come, say at 8 o'clock in the evening, now it's still summer, they'll be more than welcome to. And instead of coffee, we'll offer them white wine or something, as long as they're legal to then drive.
And Nick, have you always enjoyed doing it on your own then, with your wife, or have you ever thought, all right, I need to get some staff?
We had a valeter during COVID, and he was a great valeter. He was super good at what he did as a valeter, but he was so unreliable as a person that after about 4 months, my patience was completely broken. So in the end, one day he just did not turn up, and I paid him in advance for about a week, and one day he just didn't turn up, and I haven't heard from him since. He just sent me a text message saying something like, my phone is broken, I can't communicate, or something, and I've never heard from him since. So years ago I met somebody. I was driving a trade plater from BCA Blackbush. I had offered him a lift back to London, and he was telling me his story, as people do it, and the guy said that he had a dealership with about 30 cars, and I said, what would your advice be for me, like a young dealer? He said, have no more than 25 cars and have no more than 2 people staff that you can comfortably manage. And it kind of struck with me, but I've never had any staff more than the one valeter, so I'm not qualified to comment on how easy stuff is to manage. But I know you've done well with your staff, so either a combination of lucky or some people are just easier personality to work with other people.
Yeah. And have you ever wanted to have, like, to get a unit or to get a big premise, Nick? Have you ever had that? Like,
just before COVID, I was on the verge of maybe getting a unit, and then when COVID hit, when we were locked up at home, I suddenly found huge advantages in the setup that we had, in the sense that I could work all the time. My office is where I'm sitting here. The house is maybe 20 meters away that way, and I could actually work completely legally from this space. And then I completely reconsidered the need or the want to have a unit. And I'm 46 now. I don't know how long I'll be in the trade, maybe another 20 years at least. I know we don't exactly retire young, but right now I'm very happy with the setup that I have. I'm just trying to speed the turnover of the cars that we had and maybe speed the preparation a little bit, and that's what I've been actively working on. I know with a unit on an estate where you've got all the garages surrounding you, it'll probably be 3 times easier, and with a few stuff it'll be a lot less for me to do personally. But as I said, I've always struggled with managing stuff, and I've never had more than the one valeter really. So
yeah, I'm really. Are you jealous, Joe? Of like, well, same with James. Like, I wish I could go back to that where I think, let's have 15 cars and it sounds less stressful. But then if I did go back to 15 cars, I'd be thinking, oh God, I don't feel busy enough.
That's the thing. Once I think you've had the numbers that you're doing, then I can't see how you go back to pedestrian numbers like ours and still be, happy enough and busy enough. But mind you, though,
it's funny because
if you didn't have the staff doing all the jobs, then you'd be just as busy. You'd be just busy running around doing the stuff that you haven't been doing for a while.
Yeah, it's funny how similar Nick and I are actually, because we're actually the same age as well. And we both kind of got that mentality, because we spoke about this in a previous video. And like Dave, I know you're like bang, 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 bigger, better, and Joe's the same. And we had this conversation, didn't we, where I'm like, actually, because I got offered a big place in town with someone wanted to partner up and get a really big place in town. And I said to him, I think we're just in different places. Like, you want to be bigger, better. I want to sort of minimise my overheads, work-life balance, I'm quite happy at that sort of 20 cars. And like you say, Nick, you're busy, Dave, because you run. I mean, like I've got loads of running around to do this morning. I've got to drop cars off for MOT, pick cars up. I've got to quickly valet a car. All that. So you stay busy enough, but if you do want to disappear off for the afternoon, you can. Like you say, if you know you haven't got appointments. So I don't think there's any wrong way of doing it. I think you either have volume and you can make the same money. I think you can make the same money with less stock as you can with the higher volume. Just because you haven't got the overheads, but it's just where you are, isn't it? It's where you want to do. I know you like having, you've got sort of lots of plans, haven't you, Dave, with your stuff. So's Joe. But yeah, I'm kind of that point where I just keep ticking it along.
I think you're right, James, as well. Like you've hit nail on the head there. I think we all probably earn a similar amount of money, and me and Joe have probably got a lot more stress.
But one day you'll have a bigger business to sell. So when the exit time comes, one guy's business will be worth 7 million, and my business will be worth the sum of all my stock plus maybe, I don't know, whatever the property here is worth if I was to sell it all in one go. So that's where the difference comes in terms of earning, like salary. We're doing the same job. So
yeah, Nick and I don't have. We are the business. So as soon as we leave it, there's no real value to it, is there? I guess.
I think the sum of the stock is all that it'll be worth, really. Whereas if you have 10 staff and if you have premises in unit and all that, there is always going to be value in that. Even if I think the saddest thing of the motor trade in the UK is the way that everyone's exit strategy is just to sell the property they're trading on, and then somebody builds a block of flats on it, which is kind of you work in cars all your life, but then the exit strategy is to build a block of flats. Why not go into property to start with?
Yeah.
But
that's true.
Yeah, the one thing I find really interesting. Well, the more we talk, the more we realise that there is a lot of benefit to staying. I think I knew it beforehand, even before I did try to expand. But to going from being like a one-man band or a small operation with slim overheads and whatever, to like a bigger operation that almost like runs itself, and to make bigger profits. There's like a massive void in between being a one-man band and doing it to get into this point where it's actually that much more profitable. You got a lot of crap to go through, and then you got all these more expenses you got to take on, all these problems that you take on, until you actually get to a point where it actually really does pay to do it in scale. Because otherwise, you've just got all the staff problems. You've got just more and more cars. It means more stocking and all that sort of stuff. So. Yeah, I mean, obviously I've gone for a bigger thing, but I think maybe unless you've really got a plan and you're smarter than I am, then sometimes you are better off having a smaller, maybe niche business, because you can still do really well that way, and probably more reliably, because my profits are like this month by month. Depending, we sell 40 cars, great. Another month you sell 25, and I might wipe my nose or lose money. You've really got to be operating high. Whereas if you've got minimal overheads, you might have a great month where you make 40 grand because you sold 10 cars with 4 grand in or whatever, and then you got minimal overheads. If you have a bad month, you might just be like, oh well, we only made 5, but that still pays all our bills and whatever else. Whereas for me, it's just like.
That is so true, John. That's what I'm thinking. This August, before we started, I said, "Oh God, we've only sold 12 cars," and Nick's like, "Oh, well, that's loads, isn't it?" But we'll probably lose 10 grand this month, and that's the difference. Where when you're doing it smaller, I suppose you're more consistent, aren't you? Like, say, if you do have a bad month, you're not going to lose a fortune. Where with us, it's just mega highs and mega lows all the time, and it's hard to get your head round. And then the problem is then you're chasing your tail all the time, thinking, I need to get more cars, if I have more cars I'll sell more cars.
One thing I think I've realised, which is something I'm only just recently realised, is that you always want to take on staff when you want to distribute some of the work and take some work off your own shoulders, but actually in the short term it's more work for you, because you've then got to train that person, make sure they're doing it the way you want, and you can't just be like, that's the job, want your van in the cars, off you go, thanks. Because you come back out and then you're really disappointed because they haven't done it the way you want, and you're annoyed, and then you've got to be like, this is how if you can do it this way or whatever. But you've only got so much, if you're really busy, you've only got so much time you can give them, so then you're off again. I mean, we had a valeter start a week or two ago. Luckily he's with the other valeter, so he can kind of give us some guidance, but I feel a bit guilty because I'm just walking past like, morning, Charlie, you all right? Yeah, yeah. Oh, and then I want to, not like I've just hired him and turned my back on him. It is tricky.
Yeah.
But if you haven't got someone else to kind of give them some guidance, it's all on you. So you're there making sure that, and if they haven't quite done it the way you want, then you've got to go back and get them to do it again or whatever.
Yeah. Because what you want is your business to run itself. So you just want to go in the office and organise the cars, organise this, but you're constantly having to check up on people. It's getting the systems in place. That's the hardest thing to do. So, but there's no easy way, is there, of making money? So we're looking at Nick and James thinking, oh God, they've got it easy, but they're going to come up against things all the time. Like Nick, you know, you're doing the sales, you're doing the warranty stuff, you're driving about. What's the hardest thing in your day-to-day running of the business?
Everything. There isn't an easy thing and there isn't a hard thing. Everything is easy because I've done it for such a long time, and everything is hard just simply because it doesn't get any easier. Right now, I guess, is fixing the cars. I've never struggled that much with buying, never struggled that much with selecting what to have for stock, with having nice cars. But I think either modern cars are becoming more fragile, I know that they're becoming more fragile than old cars. So fixing them, getting them to a point where I'm 95% happy with it, to be able to offer it to the market. As I said earlier, there is no 100% happiness with me. I'm always super critical, and there is always something which I don't like, but I think customers are responding to this positively. They appreciate, and I tell them this. I tell them that the car cannot be 100% happy. We can make it 100%, and then the price will be beyond the point where anybody will be happy to pay. But yeah, I think the hardest thing is just fixing the minor little niggly things. I've got a spreadsheet with our stock and the number of things that each car needs doing, and the jobs. I've got about 75 jobs to go through on the cars that we have right now, and that's. Each one of them involves me sitting in a car, getting it to a garage or to a specialist. We have a few people that come here, but very little work gets actually done here on site. Typically, the car goes away to be worked on rather than somebody comes here to work on the car. And I know it's inefficient, but it's worked for us. So we'll sacrifice some efficiency for some sort of convenience, I suppose, and some peace and quiet around here. And I've discovered over years of selling cars that customers don't, some customers, they look for a car, they open up Trader or whatever site they found us on, they ring, and then they come and buy it the same day. But most customers need a process of look at it today, look at it tomorrow, look at it in a week, and then they arrive to a buying decision weeks from when they first seen a car. 50% of the people we deal with, they weren't necessarily looking to buy a car, they were just, browsing and looking for inspiration, if you like. They're not buying because they were in an accident and the car was written off or it was stolen. They just saw something they liked and they needed a couple of weeks to get to a point where they said, okay, I think I'll buy it now. So to me, putting it out there is important, and also it saves time if you think about it, because if you have a car in stock which is not prepped and not advertised, you're not doing anything. It's just sitting there. And it's cost. But when it's advertised, at least it's out there being looked at and it generates leads and it shortens the sales time, I think. Obviously, very often you get a buyer straight away on a car which isn't prepared, which is not ideal. We'll then take a small deposit. We can even do a viewing depending on what the car needs. Last week we had a Mercedes that needed a NOx sensor replaced, and that was a 3-day wait for the garage to look at it. But the customer was happy with the car. They paid us a deposit. As soon as the sensor was replaced, they picked it up the next day and the car was gone. So I think there is value in advertising the cars before they're prepped. Obviously, cosmetically, if they need something, you can't exactly photograph or advertise, but...
Yeah, I agree, even down to the point where we won't necessarily always 100% valet a car. It would be like, we've got a saying at our garage, which is like good enough for pictures, because the pictures make the cars look better anyway. So it's like, just get it to that standard so we can get these 4 cars listed today, because we might get interest overnight, and then that's the one car that we'll get on the valet this afternoon or tomorrow and get it ready, because like you say, the advertising is our most expensive cost, isn't it? So,
and then you can gauge the interest as well on the car, can't you, as well? So you might advertise it with pictures and you might think, oh God, I've advertised it too low, so then you can take it off and then re-advertise it at a higher price. But the one thing like your pictures, Nick, all your pictures are amazing. They're really good, decent pictures. Do you find that helps selling your cars easy?
I think I've told you before, I've experimented. So we'd get a car, in BCA now they give you a set of pictures to download, which is quite helpful. And on their set of pictures, even they've put a text now, which is quite a new thing. I don't know whether you've noticed, but it says car in preparation or something. And we've tried with their pictures, and I advertised the BMW 2 weeks ago, and it got me 9 views a day on the advert. When we photographed it, and the nearest thing to me is my Nikon camera, and that's not the highest end you can get, but it's quite, it's quite mid-range, it's decent. As soon as I photographed it with these, and it only takes me about 20 minutes to do a decent set of pictures these days, my photo location is 300 yards from where we are now. We got about 70 views, so they went from 90 to 70 just because of the difference in photo quality. Obviously the advert is the same, the text is the same, no other details were changed. So to me, the pictures, they matter, they make a difference.
Definitely.
It's very similar to, like, for me when I do YouTube, because basically, I'm sure I read it somewhere. How do I stop doing? Am I sharing or not? It's like attention is the biggest currency in today's world. It's getting people's attention, and then you can sell something to them. Your pictures, was I sharing your pictures then or not?
My website is on my screen, so I can see it here.
Yeah, so here we are. This is like a perfect, if you're talking about the YouTube thumbnail, for example, green background, you got a base thing and the car's center of it. That is like a perfect sort of setup to like frame it, all that sort of stuff, and grab the attention. And like you say, all the other ones that just don't stick out, you kind of get one chance. Someone's scrolling through Auto Trader and like, oh, nice bright colours, the car looks crisp, that's a really nice picture.
Yeah, on this
picture, you've got a nice
picture,
camera, the car looks really shiny, even if, like, I'm not saying it is Nick, but like we were saying, for our pictures that are good enough for photos, that car could have swirl marks all over it. It could be a bit dull on a rear quarter or whatever, but take the right picture and it looks fantastic with the right camera and all that sort of stuff.
So this car here is a 116,000 mile, 3,700 pound automatic Audi, and I think it's a lot of value for money. Obviously on the pictures it looks like a new car, but it's very far from it. But I think pictures help, and it's the same car. I mean, if I was to polish it and park it under the same light, it would look exactly the same as on my pictures. So they do. I think I found they do make a difference.
And are you big on walk-around videos as well, Nick?
I used to, but I found that customers are just, every now and then somebody would ask me for a video, so I would do it on my phone as I photograph the car. I do literally a minute around the car, and I will not publish them on the advert. I just keep them in my phone. So if somebody specifically asks for one, I will send it over. I used to, we've got a YouTube channel, but I used to do videos, and it took me a long time to, I'm obsessive compulsive. I needed to edit it and voice over and everything else. Not ideal with my accent. And they were getting so few views compared to the advert views that I don't do walk around video. I don't do full vehicle videos now. I just do a minute or two walk around, literally with my phone as I photograph the car with the camera. And then if somebody asks it, we send it on WhatsApp, and customers are responding positively to this, I think.
That's interesting. I mean, if you listen to Auto Trader, they, they say it's a must-have these days when it comes to selling cars. There's no way around it. And I mean, we do them. We only do like a minute or 2 minutes. To be fair, my salesman Jason used to do like 10 minutes walking around, and I was just like, no.
That's what I used to do. That's what I used to do. 5 minutes outside, 5 minutes inside, and I would talk and everything else. And the views on YouTube, these videos have been there for years, and they have like 300-400 views over.
That's why they weren't getting the views, Nick. Keep it down to a minimum, like a minute. And it's just like, here's the car. It's lovely. You can pick it up. Literally, my guide to him was, you need to do the 8 angles of the car: front quarter, side, rear quarter, back. Do that and be like, here's our lovely car. It's just come in. It's 2010 Audi A6. It's a 2-litre TDI, which is the one you want because it's got a really nice mileage and all that sort of stuff. Pop the door open, like lovely leather interior. It's got sat nav. It's got all that sort of stuff. It's a manual or it's the automatic, so you're not going to be getting a dead leg sat in traffic or whatever. It's probably not going to hang around long because it looks great value, being the mileage that it is. Check it out on the website, blah blah blah, and that is it, done.
Yeah.
And we get really good response from that. But I mean, how many cars it sells, I don't know. But
I spend ages doing walk around videos on my cars.
I know, when you try and sell me a car, he sends me like 8 videos via WhatsApp, and I'm like, fuck Fuck off, James. Come on. Tell me if it's good or not. I'm not sitting for all that.
So James, do you do that for every customer then? Do you go right
I
before
do it
you
for
buy
every
this car? This is the video.
I do it for every car, even if I haven't got a customer on it yet. So then my process is valet it, photograph it, and then do a full walk around video. And I'm talking as I go around the car. And I just find when someone turns up, if they've seen that video, it's 100% sale because they know there's a mark. I will literally go around and go, there's a mark on that wheel there, there's a mark on that bumper there. Oh, look, there's a little bit of wear on the bolster of the seat. I don't know whether I lose sales. I did wonder sometimes, do I lose sales from overdoing it? But if they turn up, they never go around the car and go, oh, yeah, it wasn't as clean as we thought it was. Or, you know, and so the conversion rate is 100%.
Today's video is sponsored by Pickamix.com, and as you can probably imagine, it wasn't really a very hard sell to get me on board with Pickamix.com. I mean, look at that. If you haven't heard of them before, Pickamix.com is one of the UK's biggest online sweet stores. They stock over 150 different sweets, from all the old school classics right up to all the new crazes that you can get in the sweet world. They also stock a range of American candy too if you're craving for something that you can't get at your local shop. All their sweets come in these resealable bags from 100 grams up to a 10 kilogram monster bucket. These are great for sharing with your family for road trips, but the first thought that I had when I saw these was that is a great way to keep my team sweet. And in fact, they did send out 2 bags and the team have already gone through 1. I said, you need to leave me 1 at least for doing this video. So bags like these, I can hand them around to the team, keep everyone happy, and it works really well for me in my business. Great news is, if you or your team or your friends and family have a sweet tooth just like me and the team here do, then I've got a discount offer for you, which is 20% off using the code METAL20. I highly recommend them. I literally can't wait to finish filming this so that we can open this second bag, to be quite honest with you. And they're delivered to your house as well, so you're always stocked up on your favorites. Check them out, find the link in the description. You definitely got all the shots, yeah? I can eat these now. Yeah. Good.
Do you ever get that, Nick, where people go, oh, your pictures are amazing, and they turn up and they go, bloody hell, this car's absolutely battered?
Well, our cars are never absolutely battered, so if they were absolutely battered, they would say that. But the only time where I find the customer will comment something about the car not being as good as in the pictures is when they come and view a black car at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a sunny day. And obviously we photographed it at 8 p.m. in a beautiful summer's evening where it all looks shiny and everything else. And you know just as well as I do is when you put a black car in the sun, every little swirl mark just jumps out at you straight away. But typically the customers would comment just because they want a few quid off, not because they're not happy with the condition of the car. If you're not happy with the condition of one of the cars we have for sale, you'd really struggle to find something similar in better condition elsewhere, simply because of my obsessiveness. I tend to not over-prepare, but maybe prepare them more than I should be, really. So we get very few customers that don't end up buying. Typically, if we can't agree a part exchange deal, when they drive the part exchange car and it's just what they want for it is completely out of touch compared to the book, and I will never over allow massively for a part exchange car just to get a deal done, because effectively you're just giving away your profit from the original car without any guarantee whatsoever you'll get back what you're allowing. In fact, I scrapped a Land Rover Discovery just last week. We've had it 5 or 6 months and it was one small problem after another, and luckily it was a cheap 1,500 we'd allowed in part exchange for that vehicle, but then we'd spend another £1,000 trying to get it. Electronic parking brake, for example, 700 quid and still couldn't fix it. It's unbelievable. So
yeah, it's so easy to throw good money after bad when it comes to part exchanges.
Yeah.
you always think you're 50 quid away from fixing it, and then if we had
Then you got a great margin.
yeah, it would have been a £3,500 vehicle very easily,
Yeah.
but unfortunately we just didn't get it there. So at one point I could not look at it anymore. So
If you want a good laugh, I've got a car that's probably worth $19.95 at best, a 2008 Sirion that I've kind of got into, and the guys went, I can't get rear bushes for it, so I tracked the rear bushes down. They went, okay, done that. Oh, now the catalytic converter is broken.
oh my God.
But they don't exist. So yesterday, you talk about running around, I was going down an engineering firm with an exhaust manifolder off a £2,000 Sirion, asking them to cut out CNC machine a new front flange for the catalytic converter and weld it on the manifold, because sometimes you just get into a car and you put the blinkers on and you just carry on going, don't you? Spend, rather than you go, I don't want to bin off, £1,000 just scrapping it.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean.
These crap part exchanges have cost me more than money. They've almost cost me a relationship with my other half, because I let her sell them, so it's an extra bit of pocket money for her, because I'm just like, I don't want anything to do with them. That's slowing me down from stuff that makes money. She's like, well, I'll sell them. I'll put them on Facebook Marketplace and whatever. Which she does, but then she'll have these crappy cars that I don't want to know anything about. I want to send them to auction and just have them out of my life. She's like, could you fix this bit? They've asked if you could just do this. And you've got a garage. And I'm like, I don't want to see it. Then I've got to go and pick that up, drive it to work, and then they'll work on it. And then the one we had the other day was this Jeep that we bought for £1,000. And it was a lovely looking thing. And it was all leather inside with DVD player and all that sort of stuff. And it had... which is normally like a warning sign for me when you buy a car, and it's got like the little Christian fish on the back, not getting, religious or anything. But that's normally a warning sign for me on the road that I'm a terrible driver and all that sort of stuff. But actually, it had sensors unplugged everywhere, or it had sensors plugged in that weren't actually fitted to the car, just in order to get it to run. And so then we're trying to put all this stuff back right, and it was more and more problems, and then I was able to give it back to this person that the girlfriend had sold it to, and then an electronic throttle thing came up. So they've obviously done all these things to hide these other issues. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm going to go mad. I don't want to be dealing with this. We got cars here that have got like 6 or 7 grand's worth of profit in, and I need to be fixing those, not this rubbish. So in the end, we sent it off to auction, and that was that. But it's so tempting to just be like, yeah, you can have a bit of money. And so I basically had to say to the other half, like, we're not doing it. And she's like, I'll sell them. It's like, yeah, but I end up fixing them, and
when you send them to auction, though, Joe, you must lose loads of money if you put them into the auction.
I mean, it depends. Yeah, some of them. I mean, I sent 4 off the other day, and I probably across the 4 of them lost £7,000.
Do you know my top tip?
One of them I put 50,000 miles on. To be fair.
Oh well, that's not
okay. So that doesn't count.
Yeah.
My top tip is put them in Copart, not in a BCA auction.
Yeah, you said that before, haven't you?
Yeah, why is that then, James?
Because the public can bid at Copart, and it's gone mental, and it's rose-tinted glasses. And to be honest, if you put something in and it's got a dented front wing, and it sounds awful, but if you put it in and it's got a dented front wing, they'll assume that was the damage, even though it might have mechanical issues. And the just bidding goes crazy. I lose less money if I put something... I mean, not I do it very often, but less money if I put it through Copart than if I put it through a normal auction. For starters, it doesn't have any differential on vendors. Like if Joe puts it in, if an independent vendor puts a car into auction, you know straight away alarm bells ring, don't they? If they've only got 1 or 2 cars in there, the alarm bells ring it. In Copart, there is no attachment to who the vendor is. They might just assume it's an insurance company. The public can bid on it, and they can join it for like 50 quid or whatever. So if you've got something that's like a bit mechanical or a bit dinged up, that would be my tip. Stick it in there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got BCA funding.
If you have a non-runner, do they still attract attention at Copart?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was just going to say, because I got finance with BCA, mine goes under partner finance, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware that that's from dealers, but it still, I guess, flies under the radar a little bit. But I mean, a lot of them I just send there just because they're overage, and I just can't. Like, I sent a Maserati there the other day just because.
Oh, the white one.
Yeah, I hated it for a start, and it just didn't. If it got any attention, it was the wrong attention. And
interesting.
But I find that like the newer, higher value stuff actually seems to do all right, and it will get close to cap, if not over it, for me at auction. If I'm sending like sub £4,000 stuff to auction, you are just binning money. You may as well, scrap it or something. It's.
Did you not try and trade the Maserati out then? Someone else must have loved that for their forecourt, I would have thought.
I think I did, but it did have it needed a handbrake done because it's electronic handbrake. But it's just such a. We're gonna have to send it from us up to the Midlands to a guy that had the correct diagnostics in order to plug it in and whatever. I was like, it's going to auction with a declared handbrake fault, and then just get it out of my life. Just having one of my sick of it moments.
How much did you lose on that, Joe?
I think I might have lost like £1,000. It really wasn't bad, especially considering we'd had it in stock for 6 months, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
at
don't
the
know
end of the
about-
day, that like 14 grand or whatever it was, it might have only been 10, I don't know, back in the account and getting spent into a car that's going to make profit the next day, that profit's straight back in.
Yeah.
Lesson
I don't
to
know
me,
about
don't
you,
buy
Nick.
stupid stuff like that.
I don't know about you, Nick, but when I hear like Dave and Joe are quite sort of laid back about that, like I lost £1,000 on that one and so forth. I think it must just be the volume of cars you do. Whereas me, I'm a bugger. They'll sit out there and I'll get them fixed and I'll find a way of making some money out of them.
I think that's the
Sometimes
reason
you
why
can't.
we've stayed small. When you're so personally invested in every single transaction, because I personally select every car, buy it, and half the time I actually drive to physically pick it up, and I know how much time I've invested. It's quite difficult to just let go and click a finger and say, yeah, lose a couple of thousand or lose 3,000, move on, earn money on something else, because it's basically you're working many hours and you're not getting paid a penny, are you? Whereas with them, because it's a more volume operation, the car would have come on a transporter, would have gone up on a ramp, somebody would have tried to fix it maybe, and then giving up on it, I think, is a little bit easier when you're not as personally invested.
Yeah.
But when you only have 10, 20 cars for sale, you will be personally invested in every single one.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's the difference. It's no less painful for them, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
I think for like you're saying there, volume. So this is our end of year, August. So 1st of September is our new financial year. So I've been hanging off with an EcoBoost that needs an engine in it. This Leaf that I'm fixing, it's going to cost about £2,000. I've got basically there's 5 cars that all need fortune spending on them. So this is, and I don't know if Joe's the same, if this is how his mind works, but September, it's the first month of the financial year. So all them cars that are going to lose money, I'm going to get rid of all of them in September. So then I've got 11 months after then to make the money back. Does that make sense?
is it not better to get rid of them in August so that the loss
Yeah.
goes in
I
this
sacrificed
year?
last
You sound
year
like
to
a
have a
sales
good
we're trying
fresh
to get a
year.
volume bonus.
No, normally it would, but this year hasn't been as good as
Okay,
last
so
year.
I understand. So you're keeping
So-
the loss to offset for a potentially a great next year. That makes sense. Yeah, I understand.
Because we want to buy like a premise.
Of course.
I didn't want to wipe out all the profit from this year for it to look terrible. So that's why I'm thinking, right, do it in September. It'll be like, I don't know, it might be like minus. But this is the other thing. If we have a good September and we fly, we might break even. So all them horrible losses, it might be a break even month. Or if it is a lose 10 grand month, we've still got 11 months to make it back up. And I've still protected the profit of this year when we go for a mortgage, like a commercial mortgage. I'll still have 3 years of good accounts.
I was going to ask you, Dave, what happened with the property purchase? How is that going?
Yeah, it's not going through now, Nick. So, yeah, I'm absolutely gutted. But at the same time, you know, what's meant to be is meant to be. But long story short, the chaps wanted 700 grand for it. And I was happy to pay that, but then the surveyor went in and they valued it at 385,000. So I could only get a mortgage of
I understand.
70% of 385,000. So I needed to find an extra 150. And then even if I did find that 150, I didn't want to overpay for something that...
No, you wouldn't have done
And
that
when
on
somebody
the car,
tells
would
you
you?
something is worth
Exactly.
half of what you're prepared to pay, suddenly your motivation kind of evaporates.
Exactly. So I know that I need to look for a premise that's like 500,000, and that's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you whether.
I was going to say you wouldn't do that on a car. You wouldn't like go on BCA, get excited about a car, and go, "That's really nice looking," and pay double cap on it, would you? So I think it's the right move.
And every time you get emotional on a car, you always pay too much for it, don't you?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think that's what had happened with this garage. I was just so emotionally
totally.
invested in it.
Well, it's just so exciting, isn't it? The idea of it. But I was curious that because I was going to take on a premises to do workshops on an MOT centre and whatever. When it actually all fell through, I was quite relieved.
Yeah,
I
same.
was gutted to start off with. I was furious.
Yeah.
But then, because of the situation that happened with it. But then I was like quite relieved, and I was like, actually, do you know what? I feel like I would have just given myself more work, and I probably would have been worse off. So, especially as we've been having this conversation, saying, you know, you can make more money or it's easier and probably whatever to do it on a smaller scale. is that your theory? You still want to buy somewhere, but you want to do it maybe like
Yeah, smaller.
smaller.
I think if I had have took that garage on, there would have been 2 mechanics to pay for, 2 valeters. Do you know what? I might give myself a bit of a nervous breakdown because I'd sold my house, and you'll never know that. To be fair, I probably would have been able to make it work. However, in my head, if I can find a premise for 500,000, which I know I can, and I just want 40 cars, 1 mechanic, 1 valeter, 1 salesman, that's where I want to be. I know James thinks I want to go like, I do want to go reach sort of thing, but I want to do it 1 step at a time. So I think that's going to be better for me, something like that.
There's a difference between like wanting to be like going crazy and just massive pure expansion versus, I think maybe me and you, Dave, we've got this element of like, there's always got to be some kind of improvement. I mean, that's what gets me up in the morning, is wanting to do something slightly better or slightly bigger or whatever. But I think it's really easy for us to think. I mean, if you've got a pitch that can only stock 10 cars, for example, and you really wanted to expand, you just got to go up in value, haven't you? Bigger margins, and we don't tend to jump to that conclusion. We stay in our comfort zone of what we're used to selling, and we want to sell more of them.
Exactly.
Actually, if you just went up in value, you could be like the, I don't know, what's his name, Tom Hartley Juniors of the world, who sold 17 cars and made 18 million quid.
I don't, like you're saying there, Joe, I don't want you to think that, oh, that's it, I've give up now. Now, what's happened is I've sold my house, I've got all this extra money, and it's all going into cars that are higher value. If you go on the website now, 70% of the cars are like Mercedes, Audi, BMW. So I'm going to give it a year of just selling that type of brand, and let's see if the profits go up. Profits might go up exponentially, and I haven't got a premise, but the profits have went up. So that's what I'm aiming for. So
that's like the first step with anything, isn't it? If you can make... I know when I went on that other podcast, the James Sinclair, the business guy, and he was just like, just concentrate on making sure that your profits, never mind just like growing the business, but actually having the profits shown at the end is like the most important thing, because then when you want to borrow the money, it's a piece of cake,
Exactly.
Stocking coming out your ear rolls and mortgages, no problems, are they? When you can say, look, we're making this much money over and over, and you've kind of got to... Whereas I'm a bit like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try it, and it didn't really work, that's annoying. And try this, it didn't really work. So I kind of envy Nick and James in that regard, because they found their niche. And
Joe, I envy Nick and James every day. In my head, I always go to Nick. Honestly, I do. Honestly, I'm like, with all this crap with the garage, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do what Nick and James do.
Dave, I was last night, I was taking the front end off a VW EOS because I've got a customer picking up today trying to work out why the adjustable headlights don't work, and I was thinking, I wish I was like Joe and Dave now. I'd be home letting some mechanic crack on with this now, and I'm covered in crap, rolling around underneath dirt in my eyes as I try to undo wheel arch liners, because this lady's coming from London to pick it up today. She's booked a B&B to stay overnight. If I've got to pay for transportation or for a B&B if I can't get out the door, I'm there like, you wouldn't believe it though, funny story. Subscriber turns up at 5 o'clock. I'm just starting to do this. I'm like, please go. No offense, go away. You know what I mean? Go away. I'm having. Oh, what are you up to? And this, I'm a mechanic, and he just starts getting out the tools with me, starts stripping it down, and the two of us do it together, and end up managing to somehow get an adjustable headlight inside of the headlight and fix it back in again and all sorts. But no, I was thinking at the beginning of that point, I was like, I wish I was like Joe and Dave now, and it'd still be a problem. I know it'd still be a problem for you. It was happening, but you wouldn't literally be stripping the front end off the car yourself and pulling the headlights out and trying to get it working.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Well, things like that, and things with, say, like cars, having to get rid of them and lose money on them. I think you just get, if you're doing the volume, you get better at compartmentalizing it. Yeah. Because I had my farm, my little bit of land where I got all these cars that would turn. Oh, it's a problem. It's too much of a headache for now. Let's chuck it out there and we'll get them with other stuff. And then they sit there, and
down in value.
Exactly. That is exactly the thing. You're like, if I just get rid of it now, I could lose £1,000 on it. If you wait 6 months, you've lost £2,000 on it, and then you start learning those lessons, and you just got to compartmentalize and just be like, that's just numbers on a sheet. Just get rid of it, and I haven't got the stress. Yeah. But still, it's really. I mean, I've got cars out there now that have been there for ages, and it's so hard to get rid of them when you find the time, you find the solution. The solution's the hard bit. You've got a couple of grand profit still in it, maybe, or you're losing a couple of grand. No one wants to lose a couple of grand when you could make a couple of grand.
It's interesting because I went to the other extreme this month, and I think I've screwed up quite badly. I traded loads of cars, and for the same reason Nick says as well. When you're doing it on your own, you see a yard full of cars out there, and you think, prep-wise, the mechanics are still working on the stuff I dropped down to them last time. That one needs paint on the corner. So I traded a load of cars out, and it's the easiest money made. Do you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. But I was looking at each one going, actually, I've just traded out a car with 25,000 miles that's got a new MOT on it that I could have literally just photographed and stuck up. And I did that a few times in a row because I tend to keep the trouble cars and trade out the decent ones because I don't think anybody wants the trouble cars, do they? And I got a calculator and I started tapping away, and I was like, I think I might have screwed up there. I'd have been, rather than making the money this month, I still would have made money on them, but it might have gone into next month. So yeah, I think I might have gone to the other extreme this month and just had too easy a life because I traded pretty much everything out.
Easier life, but as far as how much you're getting paid at the end of it, not very easy because you're working for less pounds an hour, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're still doing pretty much all the same work.
With Nick as well, because you've been doing this so long, Nick, patience is key with this job. Like the one thing Nick's never done, he never seems stressed out. He's never chased it. I always feel like you're just really cool, calm, and collected, Nick. Has that been your key to success?
I lose my patience pretty much every day, but maybe I have more of it than the average car dealer out there. I don't know.
You don't shout at customers, Nick.
I've never done that. I've wanted to though. So I've never lost my cool with a customer. But in fairness, touch wood, I've never had a really bad customer. Like we've been taken to court twice. We won both times. In fact, the second time I nearly enjoyed the experience, which was all done online and it was over in 2 minutes. The second time I was taken to court, the customer didn't turn up. And when they don't make an appearance, they lose by default. Yeah. And it was over £100. So I was quite keen to get that case tried. And I almost had a regret that it didn't go ahead because if I'd lost, it would be 100, 150 quid. But it would have been a steep learning curve up for me. But I've never lost cool with customers. But I wouldn't call myself patient. I lose patience very quickly. And with cars, not with people. With cars, I lose patience more.
Nick, do you third-party warranty or self-warranty as you've got no mechanics?
A combination. We self-warrant almost everything for 3 months and then we try and upsell. We work with Warranty-wise. We try and upsell Warranty-wise for up to 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
The take-up has been quite low. Maybe 20% of customers will take up the extended Warranty-wise warranty, but our 3 months goes pretty much with every car. Maybe not the cheapest of part exchanges, but on anything else, we just give it.
I've always interested in this because I think I might overdo warranties a bit. So I'll sell cars like I sell cars tend to all have 3-month warranty, but they could be $3,000.
We will offer it with 3 months warranty, and we'd always try and upsell it. If you give 6 months on anything, you're kind of not robbing yourself of the opportunity, but you're taking away opportunity to upsell because for a lot of people, 6 months seems like a long, long time. So they will say, no, thank you, I'll just get whatever is included for free. Whereas if it's 3 months, I feel it's easier to upsell it. Every now and then we'd get a very low mileage car that we might include 6 months free warranty, but I do it very, very occasionally just to be able to sell it. Or sometimes I will, during the negotiations with the customer here, if there are any negotiations, we might be able to increase the 3-month warranty to 4, to 5, or to 6. But as I said, that's like done on an ad hoc basis. I make the decision as I go. But we only offer 3, not because we don't have confidence in the stock, but we want to give ourselves an opportunity to upsell the one that we make money on. We've had it a few times. Again, because of the small size of our business, we don't sell that many cars, so I've only had it 5 or 6 times. And I think on all occasions, we ultimately had to buy the car back from that customer. And each car that we bought back, we made money on, simply because we bought it back with a reduction from the price which the finance company accepted that the customer. I think it's something like they allow us to deduct 1 monthly payment for each 1,000 miles traveled by the customer. and each of the cars had done 3,000 or 4,000 miles. So when you deduct 3 or 4 monthly payments, that's a couple of grand on some of these vehicles. And there was nothing majorly wrong with them. It's the customer circumstances had changed and they were just looking for an easy way out. And luckily for me, this happened 2021, 2022, and we were struggling for stock a lot. And then you just get a car that you had the pictures on, it was already prepared a year ago by yourself. They needed little. So maybe we got lucky, we never had anything major happen that we had to be out of pocket. But I think it's just part of the risk that we're taking on. You have to accept that risk and you have to live with it.
So the Audi, would you do like 1 month on that old Audi you had pictures of earlier?
I think 3 months are included with that car.
Right, okay.
It's in nice condition, mechanically it's in very nice condition, good history, I don't mind guaranteeing it. The problem is that we can't exactly upsell a lot of warranty-wise because I think they can only offer 12 months on a car of that age. But even then, we've got the opportunity to upsell something.
Yeah, one thing I don't like, and I stopped using warranty-wise a long time ago, but because their prices are all custom, so you type in the reg, don't you, on their portal, and it gives you a price.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Whereas I've used other people who are just like a set price if a car falls into a bracket. So like the AA used to be like 100 quid for, well, £99 for 3 months on anything that wasn't over 2.5 litres or four-wheel drive, and then it goes up by a 50% increase. But either way, if you figure out how many cars you sell on average a month, James?
Me,
Yeah.
retail-wise, maybe 15.
Okay. I'm going to say probably for your cars, I mean, what do the prices on warranties probably range from anything about what, like
About 100 quid
60,
for 3
70
months.
quid to
Yeah.
150? So 100 quid on average,
Yeah.
1,500 quid. How many, I mean, you could phone up warranty-wise and say, how many people made a claim? And it's just, that's the kind of maths that I did. I was spending...
I have been self-warranting, and my pot, I think when I went in, it was nearly 10 grand, because what I do every time I self-warranty on the, what's it called? The legal site that logistics. I put the value of what the warranty wise would have been on it. So I have got a £5 grand gearbox to do on a Nissan, but theoretically, the thing is, I might have a better warranty wise on that because I did put a warranty wise on it because it came back as a platinum. And the wording for platinum is to cover all electrical and mechanical components on the car. But it's a Nissan X-Trail CVT gearbox. When I put this out on TikTok, a garage that does repairs on these boxes sent me a letter from warranty wise where a customer had a platinum policy and it said we don't cover this because it's a known fault on the vehicle.
Yeah, it's a bit those things like that's why the third party ones will annoy me because there's always something like, oh, it's a known fault on that car, so we don't cover it. Don't take my money then. Don't take my money and say it's warranted, and then send me up the river later on. I just haven't got the patience for it. But yeah, I mean, I've probably got to do a timing. To be fair, we did put another third party warranty on it, but a timing chain on an Audi RS4, which could be say $3 grand, but that would have been 1 month's worth of third party warranties for me. So
Guide is broken rather than the chain.
It is, James. It is broken. Yeah,
the guide's broken. That's unexpectedly broke, that guide. Yeah,
failed.
That's it. Yeah. Because if anybody puts worn out on any, if you let a customer go to a garage and put the car in, the garage is always going to say the item's wore out, and that immediately means it's not covered, doesn't it? It's got to be an unexpected break.
Yeah, wear and tear. It needs to have failed.
Yeah.
As in broken.
So, what's next for Lovely Cars, Nick? Obviously, you're just saying you just want to try and get your sort of prep time down somehow.
I really want to get my prep time down, and I want to increase maybe the number of cars a little bit, maybe from 20 to 25. Just give myself a little bit more stock to work with. And I'm sitting here thinking, do I go electric? More electric cars at tremendous value now. They've come down in price so much, and the London market was so hungry for them a few years ago. Then their prices crashed in a fashion which I'd never seen before, and I just bought myself a Tesla 3. And it's brilliant. It's done 70,000 miles. We paid £16,000 for it. And it's the nicest car we've had in a long time. And we've had some nice cars here. It works really well. And it lasts, because it's done the high miles and it's still like a new car. I'm quite converted to them. But whether the general public will be converted in the same way as me, that's a whole different story. They're definitely not for everyone.
I've just put my Kia Soul down to 6,995 on a mid-2016 with 36,000 miles on it. Kia Soul EV with a full main dealer service history. You think That's cheaper than if I had an automatic Corsa in with a Pezzi 1.4.
It's cheaper than anything else automatic, really.
Down the road. They don't even leave Devon. Do you know what I mean? I ran it for a week. I mean, I'm a bit of a convert. I ran it for a week myself, and I travel half an hour in, half an hour back, and it was about 4 days it ran for me. And then I got home and I just threw the charger out the window, charged it up, and hopped back in again. And driving it's so much nicer to drive than any car of the same age with a petrol engine. There's no noise. It's smoother. It's more powerful. Like those Corsas couldn't overtake something in one of these lanes if you needed to get by a tractor. You can't. The gear changes are terrible. They're in second gear on any hill. This electric car is, I mean, like I say, you just can't get it across the public. I'm sure if I had that in the middle of Bristol, it probably would have sold by now. But a 6995, mine's the cheapest in the country with that age and mileage now. But it just looks like incredible value compared to, I mean, it's reversing cameras and anything that you would get at a petrol engine. They're just so, I mean, there's so much misunderstanding, I think, about electric cars. People need to go and try one and actually live with one for a little bit.
It's got to lose the whole, like, do you know what I think it is? It's just Clarksonism. Everyone's just
it's people listening to the news. People listening to the... They do. Brainwashed by the media. Teslas. I was the same at first.
They'll set on fire. They'll burn your garage down. You've got good insurance.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you can't work it. How'd you do the screen? And how'd you do this? It's like getting a new mobile phone. When you get a new mobile phone, you're like, oh my God. It takes you about 2 weeks. Yeah. Teslas are amazing. Honestly, I absolutely love them.
Yeah, I've been really impressed. I did the same as Nick. Bought a Model 3 Performance and sold it, and then I bought another one immediately. And I think that's what I'm gonna. I do want to dip my toe. We do hybrids and stuff, but if I'm gonna buy a bit like some of the stuff I buy here anyway, if I'm gonna buy an EV, I want it to be interesting in its own right. So the Model 3 Performance or something, or maybe like a Polestar, but I don't think I'd be buying in like the Citroen E-Zeros or whatever it was that we've had before, because I just think they're a bit too...
And I think as well, I think if you're getting around the 70,000 mark as well, that's where they're really good value as well, because you can retail them at like 19 grand. And 4 years ago, getting a Tesla at 19 grand, it would have been unheard of.
No, absolutely.
I think it's funny when people say things like, what about batteries? And like these batteries are carrying on. And, I've known Teslas do 150, 200,000 miles. And you take a petrol car there, the chances are you might have to, put an engine in that sooner or later, which a crate engine costs you as much as it does to get a battery back for a car.
I mean, that's one appeal for me, looking at buying like Teslas for stock. It's just like, there's so much less mechanical stuff to be done with it. I know it's still got tyres, it's still got ball joints and all that sort of stuff, but... it's not going to be, it's got a weird ticking noise, or why is that belt making that weird noise? It just doesn't
and the other good thing, Joe, is like someone bought one the other week and there's something wrong with the reversing camera or something. So you book it in with Tesla. So the customer, like he's got his online Tesla account, that he booked it in, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a fortune to fix.
They tell you before you get there how much it's going to be, don't they?
120 quid. 120 quid. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah. The one thing I would say though is, if you think about it, Nick, as well, I would dip my toe with some like hybrids and stuff. And if you're buying EVs, the prices have come down, but I reckon they're gonna go even worse with all these mandates and whatever.
Yeah, and the fines and
they're already. A lot of the manufacturers are already making their sort of flagship EV vehicles as cheap, if not cheaper, than the ICE cars, because they have to sell them. Just because people aren't interested. It seems like people thought, it's all people getting you can't convert people from petrol to electric. It's like, well, you can if you make them cheap enough, and that's what they're all finding.
Yeah,
I think you can, but they need to try them, and I don't mean try as in test drive for 2 minutes. You need to live with one for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you're converted. I drove diesel Mercedes for the past maybe 15 years. We've had a diesel Merc, same engine, 220. I've had 10 of those, Estates, GLCs, 4x4s. I love them. We always knew we'd have them like for life. And then suddenly we've been driving in Tesla around for a week. We have a charging point at the house because we've sold electric cars, BMW i3s for years. And it's so easy to live with. The software works so well. And I'm fully converted now for the sort of money we paid and for the benefit. It costs about £5 to fully charge for a 300-mile range. Like that's on an EV tariff at home, how can you beat the economy of this?
I actually enjoy the quietness and the electric motor noise as well. And I'm like a V8 petrol head.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's cool. It's something different. You know, it's different. It's not the same, obviously, but
If you live in a house with a driveway where you can charge at home from a charging point easily enough, as in not in a flat, and you don't have to run cables through the pavement, I'd say everyone just try one and then
that's
see what
apparently 79% of houses.
For example, an original Leaf versus a Tesla, it's like night and day. You know, the old technology. We tried one of those and they were useless, but yeah, the new stuff's really good.
That's the problem with this car. I think these early ones with the shorter range, 100-mile range, are only really going to work if you're selling them in a town that's got a U-Laz zone and you've got people who just want to nip around town. And I think that's where I'm...
Or as a second or as a third car somewhere, they could always work for a small automatic, but it cannot be the main family car. Like
No.
This is why I think if you're gonna stock EVs and stuff, you want to stock the flagship things like the Teslas and whatever, because they're well ahead. Whereas the rest of it, the EV technology is accelerating so quickly. If you've got like an early version or a first gen of whatever, it's old news. It's like a an
iPhone 1.
It's like trying to use a Sega Mega Drive or something when the PlayStation 5's out. Don't miss it because it's old crap. It doesn't matter how cheap it is, because something else is nearly as cheap and 10 times better.
Joe, I've got a 2010 Nissan Leaf here. You're depressing me.
Sorry to hear that.
How many miles does that
What's the value of that now, David? It can't be worth more than 4,000. I can't, or 5,000 maybe. What's the value of it? Unless it's
4.5, I'm hoping.
Okay.
4,000, or maybe 4. But it was either send it to the auction and get 500, or fix it and get $4,000. Or
And what's the range on that one, Dave?
about 35 miles.
How many?
No.
They're meant to be 50, like brand new or something, which is what I had and I gave to my missus because she hates going to the petrol station, and we could charge it every night, and she only had to go 7 miles to work and back. But in reality, the way she drove and in traffic and whatever, it couldn't do it. So
It's still, the battery is still at 95% of its range and all that kind of stuff. So I got that. That's the first thing I did. I got a printout from.
yeah, I mean that's the same with the Leaf. That's at like 90% battery, but that's still what it does. That's just because it's
Really
first
cheap.
gen early things. They're still great cars. They're actually really nice to drive. They accelerate really well. They got technology you'd want and whatever, but what a night! They really are like a range anxiety nightmare, you know.
Because when you charge it up, it says like 90, 100 miles, and then as soon as you just drive off the drive, it pings down to like 50.
Yeah. You turn the radio on and it drops another 10 miles.
Yeah.
I've tested mine out, like ran it for a week, and it did genuinely give me like 98 miles range or something when I drove it.
This is what we're saying, isn't it? First gen technology when they first came out, like 2010, 14, whatever it was, to what it is now is like night and day. But, yeah. Anyway, I realised I kept you very long, and obviously Nick and James need to get on with work. Me and Dave need to get back to being fanned and best rates or whatever that we do. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. Where can everyone find you? Obviously, the website is lovelycars.com. Are you big on socials, things like that?
No, not exactly.
No.
Very little.
Well, that's it then. Just go to the website and find it.
Keep a low profile.
Yeah.
Very low profile.
Come on, Nick. Where can people find you?
Go on our website, lovelycars.com, and that's the easiest way. I'm sure we've got a Facebook page, lovelycars.com as well, and we've got a lovelycars.com Instagram page. Instagram profile rather than page.
And a personal thanks as well, Nick, because like I say, having listened to you on Dave's podcast back in the day, which if you're enjoying this podcast, you should check out Dave's Car Dealer Pro podcast, which you started years before this. And I think, were you the first guest, Nick? Is that right, Dave?
Probably. Yeah. I was the first guest.
And that was during lockdown, and I kind of listened to that religiously. That helped get me through stuff, and I was like, that's a great idea, and, learn loads of things. And I kept notes, and it's kind of like, here we are doing another podcast. So
I think everyone should
check it out.
listen to that first podcast with Nick, because it was
quite funny.
It was like your journey of how you'd got to where you'd got to, and it was just really interesting.
Yeah, selling really iPod cases, wasn't it?
iPod cases, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. I'll tell you what, I'll link that on Spotify or Apple, whatever, in the description. So we'll leave it there and let everyone get back to doing some proper work. But I really appreciate everyone coming on. And
nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you, Nick.
Bye, Nick.
See
Bye,
you next
Jim.
time.